Hey guys, and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and of course more Shadow of the Erdtree. Today though, I have my very first build guide for the DLC with an awesome setup that feels a bit broken. In both senses of the word though, because I'm not sure they entirely meant to allow this, and yes, it's pretty damn effective. What we have here is this colossal sword, and of course it's the classic greatsword, except there's a difference. It's a bleed weapon, and by using this Ash of War, the spinning gravity thrust, I'm able to do massive successive hits. So with a couple build options to increase successive hit damage, the AR just skyrockets. With a couple of build options, the bleed builds up really quick, increasing our damage, and with the Ash of War spam, it's proccing a lot. And don't forget, this is obviously a colossal sword, so the hits initially are already strong, and yet I'm speeding them up by so much. And you've got the base moveset of a great weapon if you're not using this Ash. As you can see, I'm pretty much able to ignore what the target is doing at times, where I'm just spamming the Ash, because during it you have such high poise that you can just kind of ignore what they're doing and out DPS them. I'll even show a bit of the final boss with this build at the end of the video if you're interested, but I'm putting it back there to avoid the spoilers for those that don't want to see that. But let's highlight each detail of the build quickly. So the concept is to be using a colossal sword, the great sword like this, that normally, like you see, has those heavy effective hits. When I press the Ash, I'm spinning and dealing many ticks of damage, which has that second part follow-up for even more and the big hit at the end. It's also surprisingly cheap on the FP, 26 initially, 12 to follow up. And again, because of the really high poise during that Ash of War, you can trade with pretty much anything. This does mean some of the major boss fights, I do just trade and out DPS them, stagger them, break them, but in the open world when facing just regular enemies, I can just blindly do this no problem, they don't stand a chance. Let's talk about why this is a little bit broken and maybe not intended. The key to this build is obviously the Ash of War, the spinning gravity thrust, usable on large and colossal swords. And so I pick the colossal sword, I go to put the Ash on, but you can see how it's in the top section with other colossal style attacks, and yet it is indeed a gravity style, magic style Ash of War. Where this would normally be would be down at the bottom. You can literally see a section for magic style Ashes of War down here. One for gravity, we got fire down here, lightning, faith, of course cold, and yet again it's up here in the physical section. So when we put it on, we actually get this long list of options. Occult, cold, blood, but if we compare that to the other gravitational one at the bottom, it's only magic and cold, which is what a magic Ash of War is meant to offer you. So it is very strange that it's up here, and that's how it's having this effect. In any case, we do run it in blood for good reason. Since we're able to land that many ticks of damage while spamming the Ash of War, you're getting multiple procs per use. The build up for that bleed is surprisingly effective. Further, this Ash of War isn't really an Ash of War you just get. You need to defeat the Remembrance boss tied to it, who then has a weapon that you can trade that Remembrance for that boss weapon like normal. But then what you do is you take the Ash of War off that unique boss weapon to then be able to put it on something else like this greatsword. I'm also not sure if that's intended, although that's a lot less strange than the whole being able to put it in bleed and it being in the kind of physical section, even though it's obviously magical. So between those two things, it feels like a mistake that we should abuse while we can. You'll also note a couple of things about the build we're going to talk about, like the Fire Knight Helm. This is going to become one of the most meta items in the game, and the reason for that is because it's kind of like a mini Erdtree seal, increasing your max health, stamina, and equip load just by wearing it, which is normally a really valuable thing that you would give up a talisman slot for. And we have this new armor set, Rakshasa. Each piece increases your just flat damage to enemies, but does increase the damage you take. Surprisingly though, the damage increase in PvE is not that major, and there are ways we can kind of combat that. So I do think a lot of PvE builds are going to use this gear too. But overall, obviously this build is very effective. Those punish windows in a boss fight can be brutally punished with the Ash, but if you want to use it multiple times in a row, you're going to get that successive damage increase. You'll experience multiple bleed procs, and we skyrocket to say 10, 15k, 20k in bursts. Because I can just go toe to toe with even boss attacks, because of the super high poise while using the Ash, it's not exactly high skill or difficult to achieve that. I just use the Ash when I see an opening, and sometimes just continue it even though I'm going to do a trade, since I'm going to deal so much damage that it is just worth it. So let's now run down each of the slots, what we're using, where and why, and I'll tell you where to get the new stuff found in the DLC specifically. Kicking off with our main weapon, we have a greatsword from the original game in blood using that Ash of War. The Ash of War is called Spinning Gravity Thrust and comes from a Remembrance boss. That Remembrance boss is the Boar Rider boss found here in an outside area behind the Shadow Keep. So that's in the second major region of Scadutree. The thing is, it's going to require you to reach the back gate, which does require you to access the Shadow Keep from kind of a side passage. What you actually want to do is come from the Morth Ruins Grace and pass through here. here. There's actually a secret entrance on the northeastern side leading down. That brings you to the Bonnie village, where we can cross this bridge leading up where there's a few graces to grab up to the Church District High Road. From here you can follow this main road, and this leads into the Shadow Keep from the east side, allowing you to access this whole other area. There's water here to drain, an NPC to find, scadutree fragments, so it's well worth coming here to clear this out. But by progressing this area, you eventually come to the back gate, and by exiting out into this area, you come across the Remembrance boss. So kill it, get the Remembrance, go trade the Remembrance for the weapon, take the ash off the weapon, and apply it to your colossal sword of choice. Second is you'll notice I'm carrying a very light dagger. The entire purpose of this is a classic trick to run the Ash of War Golden Vow. Golden Vow is normally an incantation, and the weapon version is indeed a weaker version, but it is still an AR buff all the same, so by having this on, I'm dealing more damage. The actual weight of a dagger is only 1.5, so very minor indeed. Because we aren't running any faith or intelligence, we're not running any sorcery or incantations, so let's cover the armor next. Starting with the finite helm. As I said in the introduction, this increases your max health, stamina, and equip load by wearing it, which is very comparable to the Erdtree Favor Talisman. It's absolutely nuts, and again, I do think this is going to be an annoyingly popular helm just because of that passive. So you're absolutely going to want to come get it. And yes, it's found in the Shadow Keep, where you're going to find the Fire Knights. You can farm any of them that are wearing this gear, and they might drop any of the pieces, but there's one grace that I recommend in particular to farm it: the Storehouse 7th floor. If you're unaware of how to reach this, you just approach the Shadow Keep, come through the main gate, progress the main area, go into the heart of the Shadow Keep, and you come here to the first floor of the Storehouse. Then you simply progress this area by climbing the stairs at the back and working your way up the tower until you come to the 4th floor, and then you go higher to the 7th floor. In any case, from the 7th floor grace, we can exit this and head to our northeast. Up here with us immediately is indeed a Fire Knight. So just repeatedly kill it until you get the drop. As a reminder, item discovery increases are going to help here. Something like the Silver Scarab being equipped for farming items is very helpful. And there's still the original Silver Pickled Fowl Feet that you can use, and now the new Silver Horn Tenders for the same purpose. Next, for the armor set though, we have of course 3 pieces of the Rakshasa armor. Each piece of this will increase the damage you deal to enemies, but again, increase the damage taken by the wearer. It says greatly increase the damage, but in my experience, it's not that much, and I'm wearing 3 pieces and having no problem. I'm going toe to toe with the final boss of the game with this. I do think this is going to be a common pick just for the damage increase. To unlock that armor set, you're going to need to come here to the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum. It's deceptive on where it actually is on the map though. The nearest grace to that location is the Recluses River downstream if you already have that. To reach this location, you gotta come to the Shadow Keep. Enter the main gate and come to the first plaza where you defeat a boss, work your way around, cross the bridge, and about here is going to be a ladder leading down. At the bottom of that ladder, you've got kind of water cascading down, hiding a sewer entrance. You go in there, there's a painting room, and in the painting room is an illusion wall. Break that by attacking or rolling into it, and through there, you'll find a coffin that allows you to enter it, which brings you straight here, the Castle Watering Hole. We cross this area to the southeast, and there's already a grace ready right there. We follow the edge of the cliffs here, all the way down till you see this kind of structure that's lit up, cross around to that area. At that point, we start to drop down into the water and then follow the path leading east until we see the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum. Inside there, you have the boss that's using a unique great katana and this armor set, and by defeating them, you get it all. Awesome. Next up, we have the talismans, and these are all original, so no problem. We of course are running the Shard of Alexander to boost the attack power of our Ash of War, which is the primary source of our damage. We're using bleed, so of course we're using Lords of Blood Exaltation Talisman. We get an AR buff whenever blood loss occurs near us, and obviously we're triggering that consistently. Next, we have the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, massively improving our attack power with successive hits. So the more ticks of damage we deal in close proximity to one another, the more AR we get. Finally, the last slot's kind of up to you. I run the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman because it's going to help kind of combat the negative of the armor we're wearing. But if that's not a problem for you, you could go even more offensive. Perhaps by running the new Two-Handed Sword Talisman, making the Ash of War cheaper, or a classic pick like Erdtree's Favor. Next up, we have the Wondrous Physic, and so we're running the Opaline Hard Tier. Again, this is going to give us a nice damage negation so that we're able to, at the start of a fight, kind of blindly Ash of War trade because we have so much damage negation. This also really counters the negative effect of our armor, so it is really good. Just like the thorny crack here, it's going to make our consecutive attacks get stronger. Last for the build guide, we got to talk about stats. We are running 60 vigor, of course, at level 150, 15 mind, 32 endurance to be able to run all this heavy stuff, 54 strength because when we're two-handing, we reach that soft cap happily, minimal dex, but you want to make sure you've got at least 12 so that you can use the greatsword, and then we ignore intelligence and faith and dump all remaining stats into arcane as high as you can get it. And that's the stats. But there you have it. That's my first build video for the DLC. Here's a quick spoiler warning. I'm now going to be putting final boss footage in the background briefly, so look away if you're not interested. As you can see, I can open the fight by using the Ash as an opening punish, and then I can just commit to the second spin because I know I've got the poise to continue the attack and ignore whatever he's doing. I'm happy to trade a bit of health to make that impact because with the successive hits, with the bleed procs, I'm able to get over 12k in the opening burst against the final boss when all I did was press L2 twice. This is, I believe, plus 17 on the scadutree fragments, so this can only get better as I go to say plus 20, which you might be doing. Anyway, I just waited for the next small punish that easily brought us to phase 2 within seconds. Openings in phase 2 are way smaller for any build and any setup, but with this setup I can still trade when I think it's worth it because it can't stop me with the hyper armor I have. Obviously we want longer combo for successive hits and the bleed proc, and that is available as a thing you can do here, but you have to be careful. For me, it was silly to overcommit to that second spin, but hopefully this just shows you how potent this is. In any case, this is awesome. Even outside the Ash, it's a very strong, reliable weapon just as a colossal sword. I hope this build helped you if you do try it, but for now I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.